All right, let's finish this day strong. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. As we head into our final session, we're closing things out with a topic that brings it back to the heart of marketing. People, of course. Can't do marketing without people. Greg Siegelman here is the executive in residence at Western Kentucky University following a 30-plus year career in marketing or with companies like Xerox, Sharp Electronics, Eastman Kodak, and Bosch. He's led the launch of more than $2 billion in products and campaigns and brings deep experience in B2C and B2B strategy, channel marketing, and operations. At WKU, as some of you know, Greg now teaches marketing capstone and supply chain courses, sharing real-world lessons with the next generation of marketers, some of which you've had as students. So please help me welcome Greg Siegelman.
Does this come out here? Let's see. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to follow the Taylor Swift presentation. I know nothing about Taylor Swift, so I'm going to have to do the best I can. Thank you for the introduction. You've basically covered everything I was going to say in this slide with one exception. If you listen to my background, what you'll see is I've had a variety of experiences in big, small companies, many different functions, etc. And no good marketing person that I know of, especially myself, goes ahead without having a tagline. So from that, I actually came up with, and this is 20 plus years old, so I keep hearing this Swiss Army knife thing a lot. I told all my students I should trademark it because I came up with this a long time ago, Swiss Army knife with a marketing blade. So that's how I hope you remember me here today. I also want to say that I've been teaching at Western the last 8 years, and I will be candid when I tell you it's the best job I've ever had, and my students will probably tell you they make it the toughest job I've ever had. I really enjoy it, but I also find it to be incredibly tough because you're trying to stay relevant and make sure that you are giving the best information you can to your students. I'm going to talk about profiling, the 5th P. And the way I'd like to start it off is, and hopefully the technology works, I'm going to start off, there's a movie, 1986 movie, I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, called Manhunter. And Manhunter is a book, or based on the book Red Dragon, which may sound familiar, from an author named Harris. And later on, his books were made into Silence of the Lambs and some other ones. And I watched this movie when I was just beginning my career out in marketing, a few years old, and that made a significant impact on me, and I'll explain more if the video works.
I enter. The glass cutter. The piece of glass I take out is mine. The house is mine. I walk up these stairs. I pass the children's toys. Children mean nothing to me. They were put here to help me. I move to the door. I step into the room. I see you there. And I see me desired by you, accepted and loved in the silver mirrors of your eyes.
So what's going on here? As I watch this movie, and there's more scenes like this, the FBI profiler studies the person he's going after. But he doesn't just study the notes and things like this. He actually goes to the places where the serial killer has committed his crimes, and you can see him slowly becoming that person. And he takes on that personality as well. I saw this in 1986, and I started to think, you know, we spend an awful lot of time studying the 4 Ps of marketing: product, price, place, promotion. But you know what you have to do more of? You've got to know, like an FBI profiler knows, a serial killer, you got to know the target market. It's really that's the first step in marketing. I would argue it's the first step in business. If you don't know your target market, you're not going to do well in the business world. And yet, all the books talk about the 4 Ps. So, you must become the target market. And like I said, you've got product, price, place, and promotion. Many companies, and I worked for a bunch of them, one of the first things they tried to come up with was, let's come up with a really sexy product. Let's get a product out there. And it failed because they were developing a product and then trying to find the customer, versus understanding a target customer first that had needs and pain points that were underserved or unserved, and then addressing those issues. You can't determine the other 4 Ps if you don't intimately know your target market first. How can you develop a product for a market if you don't know the target customer? How about the price? How about the place? How about the promotion? And how can you market to them if you have no idea who them, or they, proper English, are? Now, on the side, I also do some consulting work. I've talked to a number of entrepreneurs, and I remember one, and in Louisville, Kentucky, when I was living up there, I met with this person, and they had a new binding for snowboards. Very excited about it. First meeting, I'm talking to them, and if anyone's ever talked to me about their new product, the first thing I go is, this sounds great. Who's the target market? And he gives anyone who snowboards, this is the market. And that's like the kiss of death with me, right? It's like, no, it can't be everybody, right? Tell me what the characteristics are that allow you to really come up with a profile of the target market. We met a couple times. I kept pushing him on it, and he disappeared for about 3 months, and then one day he calls me and says, we need to talk. So we talked, and I said, so how's it going? He goes, well, I've spent all this money. I've gone to these snowboard companies, and I can't get anyone to buy my product. And I said, what do you think the problem is? Well, first I said, how much have you spent? $25,000. And I said, what do you think the problem is? What do you think he told me? I don't know who my target market is. And I'm like, I almost said to him, so you just spent $25,000 to learn something that I told you 3 months ago. But this is what happens. People get so caught up in the product that what they don't focus on, I like to talk about root causes, you gotta know who your target market is first. And it's challenging. This goes back to the other thing. I said the 5th P is the biggest P and the most important P, but it's also the biggest variable because we are all weird and different. It's hard, right? It's hard. AI, to digress a second, we were just chatting about this. AI can't replace human beings on certain things because it can't figure us out because we're all weird and different. This is something I talk to my class about, and what I ask them is, when I put this up on the board, I'd say, how many of you have brothers or sisters? Show of hands. So you're all just like them, right? And everyone, of course, goes, oh no, I'm the exact opposite. How can that be? Same parents, same environment. For the most part, you share the same experiences. Well, if you were so dissimilar from your sibling, think about the person sitting next to you. Think about all the people out there, how different we all are. This is what makes it kind of challenging for us in the marketing world to try and tie this down. Now, here's the good news. The good news is, for us in marketing and in business, there are an innumerable number of target markets out there. If you look alone at the United States, just from a cultural perspective, we are the most diverse country in the world. We are truly a cultural melting pot. And so there's lots of opportunities out there to market to these different groups. One challenge of this is, and this was a slide in my intro to marketing, which I used to teach, which drove me nuts. It's like, well, you have Asians and you got Hispanics, and it's like, whoa, you don't just have Asians. Filipinos are different from Japanese, different from Korea, different from Malaysians. Every one of those is a target market. All of them exist in the United States. Hispanics, same thing. Whites, same thing. Blacks, right? Go more into the detail to really understand those target markets. And if you want to add another layer to all that complexity, think about fusion. Think about intermixing and things like that. We have almost an infinite number of target markets to go out there and pursue. Okay. Next, what I want to do, so I want to use price as an example of how important it is to know your target market intimately. You'll have to bear with me. There's a little math here, and right? How many of you know what this is? The magic formula. All my students better raise their hands or I'm off the stage. I talk about even though I teach marketing and supply chain, I focus a lot on this, what I call the magic formula, the P&L statement. And the reason that I do that, and this is going to be a busier slide, you can run any business by this formula. You can run any program, any marketing program, any product launch. This is the magic formula. I actually tested this theory a little bit. I was at Blue Cotton, because I like to see if I could stay relevant, a few weeks ago. And I asked the CEO, I said, do you ever use the P&L formula? He's like, oh my gosh, I live and die with the P&L formula. Now, the P&L formula, revenue minus cost of goods sold, gross profit, blah, blah, blah. The top line revenue, what's the formula for revenue? It's the price, one of the small p's, times units sold. What happens if your price is too low? You sell a lot of units, you don't make a lot of money, you go out of business. What happens if the price is too high? You don't sell a lot of units, you don't cover your overhead, you can go bankrupt. But you know, there's a third aspect to think about if you're a business person, and it may be the most dangerous. What if you actually make a net profit? Maybe it's even a target for you, but you've left money on the table. You could have made even more money if you could better focus on the right price. The only thing you have to pay the bills are the products you sell. Obviously, you want to charge the highest price possible to get what you can. Yet many companies, and I've worked for some of these companies, they set their price based on cost plus. What does it cost me to make? And then add a markup. Or, hey, here's the competition. We're 10% better. We're going to have a 10% higher price. Runs the risk of pricing too low. What's missing? Nothing, no comment about the customer. No comment about the customer. The more you know about your customer, the better you understand, and this is the important aspect. You can't set a price if you don't know the value that your customer puts on your product or service. And what companies tend to do is they jump right to price. And there's very little conversation about value, right? You have to try and find out how your target market values your product to set the price. And value is one of those subjective areas. We all have a different belief or a different value when it comes to these sort of things. I have my students, and they know this, write a marketing plan. And we talk about price, and a lot of times they'll come up with, oh, I'm going to have the lowest price. And I ask them, if everybody wanted the lowest price, look out in the parking lot here today. You have people that have bought Corvettes, you've got people with all different types of cars. That's a value statement, more than a price statement. We value things differently. So the more you know about your target market, the more you understand how they value your product or service, the more accurate you can do your price, the better you're going to be in your profit. So I wanted to share that as just one of those examples in terms of the price. One of the 4 Ps. Now, I want to share this. This is a target profile of what we call the proactive share. I'm going to give you a little bit of history on this. I worked for Eastman Kodak when we were one of the companies in the digital the consumer digital camera arena, which of course today is dead, but back in the day was the industry like high-tech group. We were trying to figure out where to sell our consumer digital cameras, and we were a mess. We were selling them to we had no target market. We had we'll sell it to whoever wants to buy it, and we were losing our shirts. And we decided that's probably not a good way to run business. We need to figure out who the sweet spot is, who that core competency is that's going to really help us take the marketplace. So we did some research. And what's interesting, one comment about research, there was no research available. This was a brand new product category, so we had to come up with a research approach ourselves. And we looked at cameras, and we said, well, we better look at photo behavior, so we did all this work, and we better look at technology, because a digital camera was a computer, technically speaking, and of course you gotta look at demographics. But if you look at what really made the difference, it's the top proactive sharer needs. What we found when our research was, it was all about people that wanted to share, and that was the target market. And we did it by a lot of observation. I'd be out at sporting events, and I would see people taking pictures and wanting to show people their picture, and if they didn't have a digital camera, they couldn't. And typically that was the woman, basically. We called them, at the time we said soccer moms are the family sharers in there. This is before smart cell phones. So you have all this data, but the observation up here is what tied everything together. And we immediately started focusing on the proactive share. We named our product the Easy Share Camera. We put our marketing on it, our product approach on it. And for 3 years, Kodak was the #1 market share leader in consumer digital cameras in the United States. And it was solely because we did this. And what this allowed us to do was focus. And once you have focus, it leads to the next step. I'll talk more about this in a few minutes, execution. Focus allows you to execute. And if you can execute, you can be successful. But if you're not focused, you're all over the place. All right, tips on getting to know your customer. Here's an important one. I stole this from a TED Talk. Anyone ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell? My students better raise their hands because I play this thing all the time. He has a TED Talk, Choice, Happiness, and Spaghetti Sauce. One of the comments is, customers can't always tell you what they want or even know. You have to make the effort to understand their pain points and their problems. So, best business book I ever read, Why We Buy by Paco Underhill. I keep it on my bookshelf. This is a guy who started a company, and he studied consumers, how they bought things in stores, and made observations about these things, and he wrote a book about it. And what this book showed me, I read it, put it on my bookshelf, is you gotta know your target market, and it's also all about execution. Keeps you focused on knowing the target customer. And it was up there, and whenever I started to wander from knowing my target customer, I'd look up and there'd be Paco Underhill smiling at me. I'd look, okay, I got it. Pull the books off, read a couple chapters, get focused, know your target market, etc. The other thing is, of course, you've got to do your research. Not just data, though, observations. Those psychographics and observations are mission critical because these are the things, by observing, you're going to find out. Tied into number 2, not up here, write it down. When you make an observation, you should write things down. One of the things I have my students do in my marketing management class, which show of hands of all of them, how many of you hated this, the journals? No one wants to put their hand up. You cowards. You cowards. So what I have them do is they have to turn in an awareness journal 4 times. And what I want them to do is every day, this is going to be really redundant for you all of us, we have those oh crap moments and those oh wow moments, things that delight us. I want you to notice that and write it down. Those oh crap moments might be pain points for target markets. Those oh wow moments might be delight things that you can then take advantage of to make your customer experience positive. And there's some other things I've told them as well. We don't write stuff down. We don't notice things anymore. We have to write stuff down. We have to notice stuff ourselves, get our faces out of our smartphones. There's stuff going around all the time on us. Write it down. How many of us or how many of you watch Shark Tank? And how many of you see somebody make a lot of money on a product that you go, I could have done that. I remember that bothered me too. But guess what? You didn't write it down, did you? And they did, and they took action on it. You can do that with your business. Be curious. Notice things. Write things down. Really important. Be curious. Be aware. Put the phone down. Ask questions. Start noticing more and more things. The Wall Street Journal. Great thing to start reading, those sort of things to get trends out there that are happening. Immerse yourself in the target market. Experience what they experience. One of the most valuable lessons I learned in doing this was I went to the retailers and I secret shopped. I pretended to be, well, wasn't pretending, I'm a baby boomer. I'd walk in for digital cameras and I'd go up to the retail shelf and I would say, hey, help me. I'm a baby boomer. I'd hunch over a little bit. I'm a baby boomer. What are these newfangled digital camera thingies, right? And I'd listen on how they would sell it to me, and they confused the crap out of me. And I realized that my target market wasn't getting the full story, and I had to fix that. But if I hadn't gone out and secret shopped and immersed myself in what they were experiencing, I never would have known that sort of stuff. You got to get out of the office and experience and immerse yourself in those things that the target market is going through. Another thing to think about, and a tip for you as well, be aware of yourself. You might be, all of us are customers. Write down your experiences. Maybe you can actually help solve the target market because we are all customers. One of the things that we did also, or I did, we launched a CRM program, customer relationship management or marketing, whatever you want to call it, an email. And what we wanted to do was set up an online website, e-commerce site, to sell accessories for digital cameras. I know I'm talking a lot about Kodak, but it's burned in my brain. And we sat there and we said, how many of us get emails? Hands. What typically is the approach? They always try to sell us something. What do you do with those emails? Delete, delete, delete. Okay. Let's try and craft something that would make it interesting for our target market, that they would actually engage with us. So the plan we came up with was, you'd buy a digital camera, we would get your information because you wanted the 1-year warranty, so we would get your name, the camera, and the email. After 4 weeks, you get an email from us, or maybe it's 2 weeks, and we'd thank you. That's it. All we do is thank you for buying the product. Give them a thank you. 4 weeks later, you get another email. Thank you, and then we would have a tip for you on how to use your digital cameras better. Something value added for you. And then the third thing was a link to our e-commerce site for your digital camera, giving you an offer, cheaper price on digital camera accessories. And we rolled that every 6 months. Thank you, value added, link. And we ended up with a digital camera accessory store that was making somewhere around $10 to $15 million after 1 year. And our adoption rate from people that would open it and actually buy was somewhere around 40 or 50%. But how did we come up with it? We pretended we were the customer and what would interest us. And we tried to put ourselves in the mind of that, of the target market. Okay. I want to spend a few minutes on talking about execution, because to me, that's table stakes. I was known in most of my jobs for knowing the target market and for leading teams that focused on flawless execution. By the way, I want to thank Leslie for all these slides. I suck at this, so thank you very much for, maybe this isn't interesting, but hopefully the slides look good for you, and that's all her credit. All right, a bad plan that is well executed will yield much better results than a good plan that is poorly executed. Otto von Bismarck, back in like the late 1800s, said that. You need to execute. If you can't execute, then basically it's useless. I'll give you another book, which isn't mine, but it's called Execution, The Discipline of Getting Things Done by Larry Bossidy and Ram Charan. I tell all my students, second best business book I've ever read, focuses on how important execution is and how you can do it. Number one step is have the right people on the bus, by the way. So I'll leave you with that tease. Leslie's read the book, she told me. She may be sucking up, although it doesn't benefit her anymore, but she says it's a really good book. So, okay, thank you very much. So, what do? You know your target market so well that you map out every single touch point between your company and the customer. Every single touch point. You understand how they first are aware of your product. What do you want them to experience for that first interaction, that first advertisement, email, whatever? And importantly, what do you want them to do next? Ongoing awareness. Store or website experience. Read Why We Buy. They will tell you, mission critical. Okay? One of the tips, by the way, in Why We Buy is data will show you sales results. It won't show you the sales you lost or didn't get. Only observation will get that. That's one of his important points, and he's got a huge number of them there. But what do you want them to feel like when they're on your website? What do you want them to feel like in the store? Obviously, the buying experience. Another thing from Paco Underhill, number one factor in customer satisfaction is wait time, just so you know. Here's another important one. How many of you are familiar with the term UBI? Anybody? Out-of-box experience. This was coined by Apple. Think about this. You will never have your customers so excited about your product or service than the first time they experience it. And that's what Apple saw with a lot of their products and focused on making sure that their customers had a complete and positive experience out of the box. Opening the box, taking it out of the box, making sure it's charged so you can use it right out of the box. Back in my day, because I'm so old, you know what the kiss of death was for kids at Christmas time? Batteries not included, right? Hey, I've got this toy, and there's no batteries. Where are the batteries? Oh, we didn't get the batteries. And how'd you feel as a kid? Whoop, right? How does the customer feel? Oh, I've got it out of the box. Oh, it's not charged. You want to keep the excitement level as high as possible, as long as possible. The other thing they found out is if your customer has a great first experience, they will tell people how great your product is. Okay? Obviously, another point, afterwards, what about the problem, support, and resolution? You have a great product, I call up to get some help, I have to go through 6 robots, and I'm screaming on the phone, customer service, human being, help, right? You've just ruined the customer experience for your product. And then return process. And I'm not saying these are all inclusive, but think about your customer, every experience they have with you and your product. And if you know that and know what they value there, you can have really good execution. Making each step as positive as possible. All right, talked about that. All right, a few tips. Break down the silos in your business. Cross-functional teams. Marketing makes a marketing plan. They don't do it by themselves. Marketing plans should have someone from sales, supply chain, IT, finance on the team. They should be there in the pre-planning process. I would argue any project, any product launch, any program, make sure you've got all the functions that will be involved in the execution. If you want to make execution work, make sure anyone involved in that execution is involved up front. Engaged up front, cross-functional teams, because the benefits are each function can bring their own customer perspective. Supply chain has a different perspective on your target customer than you do in marketing. Sales does, marketing does, IT. Easier to get buy-in if engaged in the process. I will tell you something. It is much easier to run a team and execute if everybody's got buy-in. If I'm not involved in the planning process and you bring me in to just do the work, I'll ask you all this. How many of you feel like you're engaged and have flesh in the game or whatever? But if you're in the planning process, you feel like you've got some skin in the game, so to speak, right? Important. Issues get surfaced earlier. Those issues can later on, if you don't get them surfaced, will kill you on execution. And I call this prevent squeezing the balloon. Some of you know what that means. If you don't have these people involved, marketing may do a great job, and all marketing's done is moved a problem to sales or supply chain. You want the whole company to make sure they feel like it's a success, not just one group. So one tip to throw out there on execution. Another one. I make my students do this for the marketing plan. Do a postmortem on every product, project, product launch, program, etc. Team meets after the completion. I will tell you, I've been in companies. The program is done. We scatter to the wind because we're so busy, right? And what do we lose? All the learnings that we captured going through the process, which is valuable. All those learnings, what worked, what didn't work, what would you do differently next time? That should be captured and written down, and it should be shared with the entire company on a website so that other groups don't make the same mistakes you did. That's called continuous improvement, right? You don't take a step back to take 3 steps forward. So just another tip for you as well. Assume is the most dangerous word in the English language. As soon as I assume something, especially, I'm going to assume that people got this email, and I assume they're going to follow through on stuff, and then we get in the room and go, hey, where is everything? It went to spam, I never read your email, etc., right? If ever I think of something and I always ask, am I assuming this? Or is it really, did I double check? I always double check. It's funny, I was coming here today, I know most of a lot of you have been on WKU's campus. You know how cars are supposed to stop with people in the crosswalk? Yeah. So I'm crossing, and there's a car coming, and I give them the evil eye, right? It's like, and I keep walking, and they're not slowing down, and finally I go, I'm going to assume they're going to stop for me. Who gets hurt worse if they don't stop? I do. One step back, let them go by, and then I go, right? Same thing in the business world. If I'm going to get paid the price, so to speak, then I don't want to take that and assume that. And I think...
You know that's the Jacoby's cat. You brought a bolt cutter because you thought there was a padlock. Lead's dog doesn't have a collar, but you know it's the lead's dog, don't you, my man? See the woman? The bloom on the woman? You can see her again and again anytime you want. Doggy doesn't have a collar, but you know it's the lead's dog. And the Jacoby cat. And the padlock on the door. And you know you need a bolt cutter and every other goddamn thing. Because everything with you is seeing, isn't it? Your primary sensory intake that makes your dream live is seeing. Reflections, mirrors, images. You've seen these films. Haven't you, my man?
It's the gardener storeroom.
Cans.
What cans?
The tapes were transferred from home movies. Where's the packaging the films came in?
There's films of the families in the document storage. Find them. You got them? Are there any labels? Leeds can, Gateway Labs, St. Louis, Missouri.
The Jacoby label will say the same thing as the Leeds label. Gateway Labs, St. Louis, Missouri.
Who processed the Jacoby film? No. Bob's Photo Store, Birmingham.
Stores send them out. Have him peel the top label back.
Is there a label underneath?
Does, doesn't it?
I want to chop around the roof in 3 minutes to Meigs Field. At Meigs Field, I want the Learjet prepped and a plan file.
Well, it's supposed to say to St. Louis to finish it, just to show you that it goes to St. Louis. But if you know your target market, like an FBI profiler knows a serial killer, you're going to have much better and sustained success in the business world. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's going to be questions because I don't know Taylor Swift, but I'll be happy to try and answer any if you have any. Okay. What's that? Oh, go ahead.
What's your opinion on surveys? Because, for example, if you're a college student, not college students, is that the thing is people can lie and they don't necessarily know what they want. So it's like, is that a useful tool for getting information?
Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. Actually, I'm not. I tell my classes I am always very leery of surveys. I'll tell you. I'll make a caveat with that. Surveys are an art as well as a science, and you have to know what you're doing, or you lead the witness, and you get answers that you expect. Hire a company that knows how to write questions based on what you want them to get out of it, and they interpret it as well. For example, and I know we do this at Western, and there's a good reason they have students do SurveyMonkey and stuff like that. But if you don't know how to write a question so that the person doesn't know what the answer is, that's important. You know, otherwise you're going to get a lot, in my opinion, a lot of misleading information. And the example I use is, how many of you have taken online personality tests? Okay. And how many of you look at those questions and go, what the heck does this question mean, right? If you're a dog, what kind of dog are you? I've never thought about that. Maybe I'm a dachshund, maybe I'm a... And they put it all together and they spit something out and you look at it and you go, darn, they nailed me, right? And I tested this. I've done this. I did this a number of times, and I would give it to my wife and I'd say, oh, come on, they're full of crap. And she'd look at it and go, they have nailed you right down to a T, man. And I had no clue what the questions meant, and I had no clue how to analyze it. And that's important, I feel, in a survey. I would find a company that can do a survey, pay the money, and have them develop questions, again, based on your brief of what you're trying to get, and have them analyze it. And I'd keep my hands off of it, because I just find surveys problematic that way. That's my opinion of it, based on my experience. Yeah. I didn't. Wow, you're hitting all the ones. I'm leery of focus groups too, and I've done focus groups, because people are in an artificial environment, and you're giving them product and stuff like that, and it's an artificial environment. They know that you want to make certain comments. And the story I tell my class is, I did focus groups, and you know, what's one of the things you want to get out of the focus group that's really important? Price. How much are they going to pay for this, right? One day, I walked into a focus group, and I came up to a person. I said, you really like our product, don't you? And the person said, oh, great product. You said you'd pay $500 for it? Oh, $500. I've got one in the back room. Write me a check now, and you can walk away with that product. How many do you think I ever sold? None. What does that tell you about focus groups? So you got to be a little careful about focus groups, I feel. You know, you got people in an artificial environment. I'd rather try something where I could observe people using it in an environment where they normally use a product. Like I said, I just observe people taking pictures at baseball games or sporting events for the kids, and tried to innocuously observe their behavior, much like Paco Underhill did watching people shop. They didn't know that he was watching them. I don't know how he did it. Maybe he hid in the lettuce. I don't know. But now he uses cameras and things. But the secret was, and then he would go out and interview them after they left the store. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Now, I'm going to give you a warning about this book by Paco Underhill. You will start talking to yourself in a store. You'll sit there and start to grab for something and go, why Prego? Why not this? Why not that? What made me grab this? And if you're not careful, you'll drive yourself nuts because you'll start wondering, why did I, those sort of things. Anybody else? Yeah. Well, we did have the persona up there for Kodak, right? So those can be handy and helpful. Students love to do personas, except they don't like to put data behind it. So they basically sit there and make up a persona and go, well, I want it to be Taylor Swift. So we're going to have Taylor Swift be our product persona. I'm like, okay, well, you saw the Kodak thing with all the data and stuff like that and the needs. It's like, well, we just kind of thought it was Taylor Swift. That doesn't work. Right? It's really, the purpose of a persona is keep your eye on the prize. The purpose of a persona is that's my target customer. That's who I'm doing this for. And all these other attributes, I'm keeping that in mind so that I don't drift a little bit. Good question. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me, just give me a quick note that you saw me here. I connect with anybody typically, especially my students. So.
Oh my gosh, we got here to the end of the day. It's wonderful. Thank you all. And thank you to Greg for wrapping up the day with such a great session. I think it's important to not forget those fundamentals. And thank you for spending your day with us on behalf of the board and myself. I'd like to also thank all of our speakers and our sponsors as well, especially VidMonster, being boots on the ground all day long, lots of hard work, and being our presenting sponsor. If you enjoyed today and you'd like to join AMA or get more information about who we are and what we do, talk to any of the board members. Can you all raise your hands real quick just so that anyone here can see, and reach out to us. We also, we're all over social. Website is amabg.org. And we hope to see you in November at our Marquee Awards, November 18th. You were right, Riley. 4:00 at the Mint Gaming Hall in Bowling Green. Again, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you in November. Thanks.